What's up, guys and girls? Iceman here. Welcome to Chilling Tales. So this is one that happened in my home state of Michigan. A lot of strange folks in Michigan. You have a variety of them, I would say. Some of them live out in the woods, some of them in the city. Some of them haven't quite adapted yet to modern civilization and so forth. And maybe that's an exact example of what we have here with Jeremy, is what we're going to call him. Jeremy was an interesting fellow. He was raised in a very strict Christian home. And it was never really explained to him how the birds and the bees work, if you know what I'm saying. So he met a few girls in his late teens that he ended up sort of dating. Of course, it was all a bit confusing for him and rash, and he wasn't the best socially. He had some quirks, if you will. Some interesting things about him that I would say many women would probably find off-putting. There was actually this one example where a girl that he dated actually ended up hooking up with one of his friends. And Jeremy was so infuriated over this matter, he got a text from another buddy saying that they're over at such and such party, doing this and that Jeremy threw a machete in his trunk. It was about this long. And he was just furious. And he took off in his car looking for this guy, right? The guy left the party just terrified. And Jeremy was searching all over creation for him, just red with anger and hate. The guy actually had hair kind of like mine, sort of a lighter complexion. You could just see the anger in him when he would get pissed. Just in those soulless blue eyes and that skin that was red as a fricking tomato. He had a decent build to him, too, a bit muscular for his age. Some biceps and all that. Not a bad height to him. A bit of a fighter. A bit Irish or something. But nonetheless, something horrifying happened between him and an unsuspecting victim. All right, this little female by the name of Beth is what we're going to call her. So Beth didn't meet Jeremy until his later days. He was in his late 30s when he met her. He was actually married at one point, but his wife left him. They had a kid. So the kid was split custody, this and that, and Jeremy was back out in the dating game, not knowing how the hell to deal with women. He had a problem with him. He just was trying too hard to be funny and this and that. He could never really look him in the eye. I don't really know why that is. I mean, he must have had things he was hiding. I think from the Christian household that he was raised in, he had this overwhelming sense of guilt that was always sort of with him, you know? And that guilt caused him to not want to look a female in the eyes. Some sort of fear, some sort of undeserving sensation that he felt. Some sort of dishonesty that he couldn't let go of, I think, is where this sort of issue stemmed from. But of course, women found it concerning. Why the hell isn't this guy looking me in the eyes when I'm sitting across the table from him, trying to have a freaking conversation, getting to know him, you know? But Beth, for whatever reason, I don't know too much about it, but she was single when she was 30 years old. That's when Jeremy met her, and he was in his late 30s. they met through one of these little Christian groups where they, like, it's one of those single meetups, you know, where they meet up at like a bowling alley or something, or a coffee shop, just a bunch of singles, and they could potentially get to know each other and find a future partner or whatever. So Jeremy finally mustered up the courage to go to one of these groups after years of being divorced, right? After years of not even touching a woman. And this little Beth, I mean, I assume she might have had a couple problems. She was also from a Christian household, but she was a decent looking woman. Nice figure to her, nice face, nice dark, long hair. Nice big, beady hazel eyes about her. Nice olive skin, luscious lips. There's this, she sort of embodied one of those chicks that you would think like lived on the farm or whatever. You know? And she's almost, seemingly anyway, untainted by the world. And that's what Jeremy liked about her. There was an innocence about Beth that was intriguing, to say the least. So nonetheless, they met at this little coffee shop with other singles, and it just so happened that Jeremy and Beth sort of kicked it off a little bit in conversation. Jeremy, of course, was nervous the whole time, but Beth, with a sort of bubbly personality, sort of took over with talking this and that, and then Jeremy went back and started talking to her about his life, about his divorce. He started telling her a bit too much. I don't really know what Beth's thoughts were of him at the time, but the conversation lasted for about an hour. And then the group ended and people started to leave. They said goodbye, maybe we'll see you again. And Jeremy watched Beth get into her car. And he kept an eye on it. He looked at her license plate. He went home then and Googled the license plate, trying to figure out where this girl lives and all this other stuff. Now, I don't know how he found it. I think it was through the Facebook meeting groups, but he found out her full name and started browsing her Facebook, which he didn't have too much information on, just some photos of her past. And ended up finding her address. So Jeremy ended up driving over there to her house, just sort of watching her window. And sometimes he'd see the silhouette of the woman, maybe getting up and going to the bathroom or something. I mean, I don't know, but he was watching through the damn window at his car. He'd park a couple houses down from Beth's little duplex that she lived in, and he had a pair of binoculars and he'd watch her. He'd just sit there for hours at night watching this woman, or just waiting for any sign of her. He just watched the door. And hours would go by and he wouldn't even see her. And he'd just sing to himself little songs about love and infatuation and things like that. He'd sit there in his car and sing to himself, just watching, waiting, and perhaps plotting. So a couple of weeks go by and he doesn't see her at the damn group. So he ends up following her. He goes to her house at morning, waits hours on end, sees her come out of the house, get into her car, and drive to a grocery store. So Jeremy follows her to the damn grocery store, right? Little does she know. He sees her get out in her little dress and little heelish shoes and sort of her hair done up. Makeup done up just ever so slightly. And she walks into the grocery store to shop. Jeremy watches her nervously, sweating at the brow, contemplating if he should follow her in there. Maybe act as though he just randomly bumped into her, right? Now, I don't really know exactly how it all transpired, but Jeremy ended up getting out of his car, walking through the grocery store, walking by her. And she saw him and recognized him, But he was so afraid to say anything that he just sort of rushed by her. Right? And then he thought better of it, and he quickly grabbed some deli meats and went up to the register to check out. That's when Beth saw him again. Beth was checking out in a different lane. She checked out before Jeremy did, and then she waited for him to get done checking out, and then she said something to him. Hey, remember me? I'm Beth from the group. And Jeremy was so afraid, his voice trembling, his palms getting sweaty. I don't really know exactly what he said, but just something awkward and unusual is how he responded to this woman who was perhaps wondering if, I don't know what she approached him, which is the interesting thing, you know? There's something bold about her. Maybe she was afraid. You know how sometimes women almost pursue their potential perpetrators? They want to look them in the eye. They want to say something to them. They want to tell them or showcase to them that they're not afraid. Right? Because then maybe the guy would back off. I don't know if that's what she had going on here or not. And I don't know, hell, maybe she was interested in him. But probably not after this point. I don't know exactly what he said, but the way that he responded to her was just unusual. It was just bizarre. And she could sense, I think, that there was something going on in his mind that perhaps she didn't really want to know. You know, something off-putting, something sinister, something evil, something stirring up from deep within. Something that spawned from those insecurities from his childhood, the insecurities from the divorce. I don't know. But what came after this was horrifying. So, she noticed unusual activity. There was another situation after this where she saw him, her and her friend were at a coffee shop, and he walks by. Just out of the blue, like he's just on a walk. He looks over, sees her, she looks at him, he quickly looks away and just keeps walking. Now, I don't know if he was stalking her or not. This little coffee shop was just a couple miles away from where he lived. But she saw him again within a damn week. All right? It's just really, it's an unusual occurrence of events, you know? Is it coincidental? Was it just by chance, or was it by intent? I don't really know for a fact if he stalked her on that occasion, but it wasn't the last time. He saw her again at a restaurant. I think she was there with a family member. This was about 5 days later. And the town wasn't that small, okay? There were like hundreds of restaurants in this town. So what are the chances that Jeremy would run into her at the restaurant? He goes and sits by himself, watching her as she's eating with her family, okay? It's just unbelievable. And at that point, I think the woman was terrified. She gave him a bad look. She turned red in the face and said nothing and hurried out of the restaurant when her family was getting ready to go, and she took off. She felt scared and awkward at this point. What's crazy is after these occurrences, Beth went missing. Okay? So, I don't know exactly how it all transpired. But Jeremy got away with it for some time. The police found clusps of her hair at Jeremy's trailer. Okay? These long strands of dark hair. It's speculated Jeremy would sniff the hair while singing love songs, just imagining himself with this woman in the dark. He'd shut off the lights, lock his dog in the other room, and just sing to himself, sniffing this hair, sort of lying down on the couch and just laying the hair across his neck, you know? Beth was found months later. Cinder blocks were chained to her waist and neck and elbows. She was found at the bottom of a small lake. All right? Her eyeballs were gone. The fish were eating them. Her skin, pale as a ghost. They say that the look of death was still on her face, like the look of shock and horror. I mean, who's to say what Jeremy actually did to this female? But nonetheless, I mean, I don't know if he had her captive for a while, but got paranoid that he was going to get caught. I don't know if he accidentally killed her while holding her captive and then just tossed her in the bottom of the lake. I don't really know. But somehow they found out that it was him. And he confessed fully. I think that was part of his religious upbringing that just made him feel so convicted that he just let loose with his confession about what he did. Like in some cases, you'll see these guys who just try to defend themselves at all costs and not deny everything no matter what. But Jeremy was different. He captured this woman. He did hideous things with her because he felt rejection. I mean, I don't know. Maybe she would have been up for dating the guy if he would have played his cards right from the beginning. I think she might have liked him at first, but after those next few encounters, just those, what are the chances you see him at X, Y, and Z all in like a week? There's something stirred up within this madman. And of course, he was convicted of murder, abduction, and other hideous things. They pulled her corpse out of the small lake. Turns out Jeremy had a little canoe on the side of his trailer, some cheap one he got off Craigslist. And he took her body out to the center of this small lake. The lake wasn't very big. It was about the size of a football field. Down some old country road where people would go and fish there occasionally. It was only about 30 feet deep or so, the deepest point. He went out to the middle of it, chained her up, and just dumped her in the bottom. Apparently, he put her in his bathtub for several days with vinegar and acid from batteries, just trying to, melt any DNA that might have been on him that transferred over to her. Her skin was just burned and melted while she was at the bottom of that lake. But somehow the detectives still got him. Through the Facebook, cross-referencing this and that. They found him, they started pursuing him, they started interrogating him, and he just broke. Like a vase. He shattered. Confessed everything. Let this story be one that keeps you cautious. Don't trust anyone. What are your thoughts on that? Have you heard of anything similar? Like this video if you will. Let me know if you guys like these kind of stories. I'm thinking about posting more of them on this channel. And I'll see you tomorrow with more chilling tales from the Iceman.